Hey everyone, welcome back. Today's video is going to be all about what mania feels like for me. It's obviously different for different people, but I'll kind of walk you through my actual episode and what the symptoms looked like then, as well as my reflection to times before I had my diagnosis and what I now see as periods of maybe hypomania or mania. I'll start by saying that I'm a firm believer that I've always had bipolar disorder. I feel like it's genetic and it's something that I've always lived with. It's not like in October 2018 when I had my episode, that's when I got bipolar disorder. That just happens to be when I had an episode resulting in hospitalization, which then gives you that bipolar disorder diagnosis. So, for me, when I was actually having my episode, there was about a 6-day period leading up to my hospitalization where I was what I call ramping up. So I wasn't aware of this at the time, but getting a puppy, trying to figure out how to work from home and remotely for a little while, and this is pre-pandemic, so I didn't really know how to do that well. Getting a puppy, being excited, and having a big work project, I slowly started sleeping less and less. But I used to sleep like 4 to 5 hours a night before I knew I had bipolar disorder, and that felt normal to me, and I would wake up like feeling good and ready to go. So I already had, multiple years of not getting good quality sleep. And then the few days leading up to my hospitalization, I was getting hardly any sleep, maybe like 1 to 2 hours or some spotty like hours here and there. And that was not necessary. It's not like I was raising a young infant and, breastfeeding or something. It was just my brain going into overdrive about these various things in my life and projects and not recognizing that it was mania because I didn't know what mania looked like for me. So I'll give you a couple more examples. In those days where I'm not sleeping, I'm also buzzing. So for me personally, it kind of feels like adrenaline running through you, but like when you're getting more than hypomanic, it's almost like sometimes you're shaking depending on, what you're doing or kind of how you're feeling. And if you're like eating, drinking water, etc. Because for me, I was not really drinking and I hardly ever drink water as it is. I have to really like work to drink water. So when I was manic, I'm not thinking about drinking water at all. Wasn't eating really. So then your body is having these physical like reactions to that. So I'm not sleeping. My thoughts are like so rapid. And I think I mentioned this in my first video. If you go back and look at the notebooks that I'm writing all these ideas in or like mapping out these work projects, they're all coherent and like make sense type of thoughts. So that's the other thing. Like I'm on these calls all day with my coworkers talking through these, potential scenarios and ideas. And it seems normal, but sped up. So like rapid, And then by day like 3 or 4 of no sleeping, rapid thoughts, like going a mile a minute, getting so much done, then it started to get out of control in terms of, to me, everything's coming together, right? So you might have heard people reference in the past, like there's different things that are common mental tracks when you're having a manic episode or a psychotic event, which is like, first, there's some people get that God complex, right? Like they kind of have this sensationalized view of themselves and that they're like an almighty one. I didn't have that, but some people have this like everything is aligning and connecting, and I had that. So with my work stuff, I was strategizing this social media plan and the launch of an account for work. But then I also got this crazy idea that with our new puppy, we could make a famous Instagram account for him. And again, there's probably a way that like we could have done that, and that's not that far off of a like reality, which is also what makes these manic episodes so interesting, right? Like If you have resources and a lot of money and you go spend like $1,500 in an afternoon, it's not a big deal. Or I'll sometimes reference like Kanye West, and I do not think that he is a good example for mental health or bipolar disorder. But if you think about mania in a person like that's life, he's coming up with ideas, it's flowing, and he has the funds to like make it happen. So for anyone experiencing mania, if you don't know that you have bipolar disorder or what mania feels like, sometimes it all looks normal. And like the people in your life don't think it's weird because you are making sense and you are coherent. But inside your head, it kind of feels like an elevated, like, oh, everything's aligning. I'll talk in future videos about like the spending and how spending and mania are connected, as well as like ADHD, which is a part of my journey. But in those few days leading up to hospitalization, in thinking that I needed this Instagram account for my dog, went to Mayfair Mall here in Wauwatosa, where I grew up. And within like 30 minutes, I first walked into the Apple store and I bought a brand new laptop. I was in credit card debt. Like, I had no business buying a laptop, let alone a Mac. And then I decided to walk from that Apple store to the AT&T kiosk in the mall and get myself a new iPhone. I already had an iPhone. It wasn't broken. Nothing was wrong with it. But in my brain, I needed to get those tools so that I could be successful. And that is a prime example of mania, because it's like, if I really wanted to attempt to have a famous Instagram for my dog, I could do that with everything I already have, right? The iPhone I already have, the laptop I already have. But mania is this like rapid, elevated, everything seems to be making sense. And to me, if I got the equipment, I was going to be legit. And so I dropped all that money. I probably could have like attempted to return after I left the hospital. I don't even really know if anyone ever does manic spending and they like financially it's breaking you. I always say try. Like, I'd go back to the store and make my plea to see if they'd take it back. But I mean, I know people that go spend $700 at Michael's craft store, mental health disorder or not, but like, if you're manic, you're not thinking at all about if you can afford it. You're literally just thinking of whatever that like end goal is. And sometimes your brain is moving around on so many different ideas at once that like you could move the ball forward on a project or talking to someone or whatever, and then you move on in minutes to a whole nother thing, and your brain, it's already forgotten about that. So those are the types of behaviors that I was doing. The other thing is, when I was taking my puppy around to everyone, I was like talking to them about making a social media account for their animal, and I was going to run them all to like create this web. And again, it is like how bot accounts grow and help each other. Like, this is 10 or 7 years ago, 8 years ago now. So it's like, it is a concept that makes sense. But that's when my friends were like, I don't want to send you 20 pictures of my dog for you to make a fake personality of them online. Like, that's a little weird, you know? So those are the kinds of things for me that were happening in hypomania. It's rapid thoughts, rapid speech. I was like seeing everything coming together. And it's the disconnect from reality with things like manic spending, not spending money that you can afford to spend, or like thinking about what you're spending. And then also, honestly, sometimes just running around, going a mile a minute, exploding on all the people around you. Like, I fortunately haven't experienced a lot of that myself, but I know people who, when they're manic, they're just like running errands and talking to strangers for like 25 minutes in the grocery store. And so that is very real. The other thing that I'll say about mania is, once I was hospitalized and I had my diagnosis and I'm starting to learn more about bipolar disorder and how my brain works, I was able to look back at times in college and like throughout my career in San Francisco, and I could see hypomania, sometimes even mania. And it was never like over the top or nothing like bad happened, bad enough where people were like alarmed. And I think that could be true for a lot of people. Certainly, anyone diagnosed late in life, you'll probably kind of reflect and think, oh, that maybe was one of those. A good example for me is when I moved to San Francisco. So I'd been living in Madison after I graduated college, and I was on my second job post-college, and I liked what I did, but my friends had all moved away. I felt like Madison was so small. I wanted to live in a big city, and I had gone to visit a friend, and just the whole weekend, I was like, these people's lives are so different than mine. They were making tons of money. They had like this laid back schedule. I was a hotel front desk manager. So I had like crazy hours. I would work, 10 days on, 2 days off. And I just had this feeling like I got to get here so I can have more opportunity. So I get home from this vacation. I apply to like a ton of tech companies that week. I get an interview with Yelp for the sales department. And obviously for sales, they're hiring like in mass, like 30, 40 people a month. So it's not that hard to get the job. It's kind of just about personality, and they feel like they'll teach you the rest. So I think I did a phone interview, a video interview, and mind you, this is 2014. And then they offered me the job like a day later. They're like, here's the salary. It was the exact same as what I was making in Wisconsin. I think it was either $34,000 or $36,000 was your salary. But you had opportunity for commission, and they kind of framed it like, yeah, everyone who hits quota is making, X more. And if you exceed quota, you're making way more. So I'm all convinced, right? They give me a $500 stipend to move. That's no money. That was like my plane ticket, right? And I remember I had put in my notice at work. I'm like back in Milwaukee for the weekend, staying at my parents', really excited. And I'm signing the offer letter, and I'm showing my dad. And he's like, Em, it's not making a lot of sense to me. Like, they're going to pay you $36,000. Isn't that what you make now? And I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm going to make commission, blah, blah, blah. And my dad's like, okay, but like your rent now is, you guys, I think I paid $550. It was maybe $6 or $625. $550 though, I think, a month. And it was a nice place. It was kind of on the outskirts of Madison because I was driving to Platteville every day at first. So like I wanted to be on that far side of town. And he's like, and you're going to be paying, I think it was $1,650, my first apartment in San Francisco. And I was rooming with other girls. So me, 3 other girls, 1 bathroom. It's not like we were getting this like lavish place, but San Francisco is expensive. And so my dad's kind of like, the numbers aren't lining up for me, But in my head, I'm like, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to get out there. I had this belief in myself, like, I'm not going to be making $36,000 a year for long. Like, I just need to get out there and prove myself, which is awesome. I think part of that is like your confidence in your 20s. And I also had the privilege of like, if I failed, I could come home. And that's a privilege that, I notice and recognize all throughout my journey, which is not only, at the time of hospitalization, having a good job and health insurance, but like taking risks in life and doing things like that. I do that because of the foundation I have. Like I could go live at my parents' again if I need to. I mean, haven't lived there since I was 19. It'd be weird for all of us for a little bit, but that's like a safety net that not a lot of people have. But for young people, if they have that and they're excited, I mean, who's going to tell them no? My dad just wanted me to know he wasn't sure how it was going to work out, but he was never going to tell me not to go. He was supportive, and he's like, she'll call me if she needs me. Well, by the time I left San Francisco about 4 years later, I was making more money, but I was also nearly $30,000 in credit card debt, partially because I didn't understand how credit card interest worked, but partially because I was making no money, living in an expensive city, and like not gonna not do things. And I got a credit card that had this like huge limit. And so the decision to move out there was totally just not making sense. And the second layer beyond that is like, I could have taken the job and moved out there and figured it out, but I wanted to live in the city. So I'm paying expensive rent. And the reason I look back on this as like hypomanic or manic decision making is because I show up the first day to work, and I think there was like either 42 or 52 people in our class. So a lot. It was a big class. These are all young people, a lot of people first job out of college, or maybe like me, they've been out of college for 2 or 3 years, all very young. And we're in this office environment, tech, like snacks everywhere, beer on tap after work, all that good stuff. And we're all introing ourselves to each other. Come to find out, I'm one of like 3 people living in the city. Everyone else is like living with Aunt Edna 45 minutes outside of town, riding the Caltrain in. And that was when it kind of like clicked for me, like, oh, maybe I didn't like budget this out or think about this. And then I remember like 6 months after I'd started living in San Francisco, I come to find out all my roommates are making like $80,000, $95,000 because they're working at like Facebook or, different tech companies as a recruiter or a project manager. And I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't go back. I'm so glad I went. And taking a risk on working at Yelp led me to my incredible career where I gained so many skills and was able to navigate this bipolar disorder diagnosis. So I definitely don't look at it as this decision that ruined everything. But it's a good example of how mania manifests. And sometimes when you're younger, people look at it as like, oh, they're just, taking a risk or trying to figure it out. And yeah, it can be intense, especially if you don't know what to look for or what's happening. But now that I have my diagnosis and I know more about myself, my brain, mental health in general, I'm able to see mania coming. So after my diagnosis, I moved 2 different times. So the first time we moved out of our apartment into a duplex and I got hypomanic. Moving is a lot, the packing, the cleaning, yada, yada. And I'm so lucky my mom helps with that stuff and she's amazing at it. So she was helping and, making it easier on me. But it's still just you're thinking of all these things, right? Anyone knows who's moved. You have a to-do list a mile long in your head, and then you also need to do things in certain orders, right? So my brain is just constantly like in overdrive trying to figure that stuff out. And I remember it was moving day. We had just gotten all of our boxes dropped at our new place, and my aunt came over just to like see the place and see how we were doing. And I'm like buzzing around the apartment doing 8 million things. And she just kind of grabbed me and she was like, like you need to take a deep breath. Have you eaten anything today? Like you're going a mile a minute. And I'm so lucky that I have people in my life who know what to look for and also are comfortable telling me, because it is something that sometimes you don't notice yourself at first because it feels kind of good, And people who have bipolar disorder with severe depression, like debilitating depression, cannot get out of bed, like horrible. I've never experienced that. But if you live through that, of course the mania feels good. Like you actually feel happy, euphoric, like you're getting so much done. And so I totally understand why that's like a semi-desirable feeling. For me, though, I'm just so scared of tipping over into full-blown mania. So I know sort of what to look for. I have family members that know what to look for. But if you're wondering about yourself, I would say definitely seek out a professional just to kind of start the process. But also pay a little attention and give yourself grace that you're human. And sometimes your emotions are just emotions. And my therapist has to tell me that a lot. Like, no, you're not manic or hypomanic. This is a thing that maybe is worth like all this energy or focus. Or sometimes with frustration, I'll think like, oh, am I maybe not in a good balanced place and that's why I'm getting frustrated? And she'll be like, admittedly, it's a frustrating situation. So not every emotion or period of time where you're feeling intense feelings is because of a mental health disorder. It could just be being human. But if you are kind of looking for those patterns in yourself, also make sure that you're not being too intense on introspection, you know? It's good to like notate down how you're feeling, you know, rapid thoughts, rapid speech, things like that. But if you're checking yourself too much, I think sometimes that can put your brain into overdrive too. So sometimes it's good to just ask people around you and maybe have some examples for them of what you're looking for, like the types of things that they might notice. What I want to kind of close out on is there's a lot of reference to mania or people being manic when it's really not the clinical sense of mania. Even saying like, the weather is so bipolar, or like, oh yeah, she was acting totally manic. Those are verbal and like language references that cause stigma and also cause people who are maybe experiencing that to be cautious about sharing their experience. Like those are the types of things that kind of invalidate what people might feel they experience with their own episodes. So when you are learning about this or talking to people about it, try to be mindful of language, but also if you make a mistake or mess up, correct yourself when you catch it. It's not a big deal, but I would never call someone bipolar. I would say they have bipolar disorder, or they're living with bipolar, or they're managing bipolar. But to say like, Emily's bipolar, I would avoid that. That's like a language faux pas that also creates a lot of stigma. And if you're feeling like you maybe have hypomania or mania going on, definitely dig into it and don't be afraid, because it might not mean a bipolar disorder diagnosis, right? Maybe it's anxiety or something else, but it's okay to explore and do a little bit of research. Julie Fast is a bipolar advocate who has made some content and collaborated with a physician on a book. And I was recommended that book when I was in treatment, and I recommend it to everyone now who has bipolar disorder, because it talks about the brain and the physical elements of it, how you can try to like live a good bipolar life with like diet and other things. And then it also gives resources and insights to friends and family for how to support someone or how to manage helping someone through bipolar disorder. And so if you're even just curious about it for yourself, it's a great read to hear more of the clinical and then her personal experience of what those different phases of mental health episodes look like or feel like. Again, it can be different for everyone, but for me, mania is lack of sleep, rapid thoughts, rapid speech, and then when you're getting into that full-blown mania, it's kind of the everything is making sense. Maybe you're like texting people and the spelling errors are crazy. That's that tipping over when your brain is going so fast, it's not even tracking what happened 30 seconds ago. So that's mania, my experience. And if you have questions, drop them in the comments. I also want to know if other people have different experiences completely. So let me know if you're comfortable, or just send it directly to me, Emily at bipolarboutbalance.com. All right, see you on the next video.